Okay, hello, my name is Grace Youngblood, and I am presenting my action research project. Okay, so my statement of the project. So Joseph is an 11-year-old boy who will be entering the sixth grade. Despite the student being able to comprehend passages at his instructional level, he struggles with written summarization and lacks general motivation for reading beyond specific genres, which is he likes graphic novels and comics. His fluency is also impacted by his speech sound difficulties. All right, so my research question was if I incorporate strategies that leverage the students' interest in graphic novels and comics and explicitly teach various summarization techniques, what will happen to the students' ability to summarize written passages? All right, so when I first originally did everything, I did the motivation. I also did a reading attitude test, the survey. He does not like reading outside of reading comics and graphic novels. He feels like why do he has to do it? He feels like it's a chore. He's really not excited. What gets him excited is the pictures. And yes, the fact that he is going to the sixth grade, this is something that I'm trying to get him to understand that he will have to read whether there's speeches or not. Um, but that is something that's motivating him. So I figured if I incorporate those graphic novels and comics and explicitly teach him how to summarize, he will improve once we give him something he would like to read versus forcing him to read something that's boring per se to him. All right, so in my intervention plan for Joseph, which is focused on reading comprehension, specifically using graphic novels to enhance his understanding of the story, elements, character analysis, cause and effect, vocabulary, and inferencing. The goal is to prepare him for sixth grade, okay, because he's going to need all of these different things when he enters the sixth grade, and I just want to make sure he's ready. Again, like I said before, he is operating on grade level. What triggered this is that he barely made a three. When I say barely, he made it. He was like on the cusp of a three and a two, and he landed a three. So we want to just make sure that we find the gaps of instruction, the gaps of learning that he has. All right. So in my intervention components, included several graphic novels, but we really rain focused in on Sisters by Raina Tellemere. Butcher her name all the time, by Raina. And we read short passages. We started with the novel, which is really a graphic novel that has comics in it, and you have to read a lot of pages in order for it to make sense. So we had to read like sections. What I loved about Sisters is that they had this flashback component where they were going back and forth from the past to the present and trying to find where like basically how their lives changed between how they used to be as sisters and who they are present day. Um, I picked short narrative passages like the sisters, um, and specific sections where he could relate to. And if he couldn't relate to that, I would also give him some background knowledge. For instance, give him a scenario or create a scenario so that he's able to make those connections. Okay, so we did use a lot of different graphic organizers, digital and printed. One of them was story maps. I felt like this was a really important one for him to identify the problem, the setting, the characters, key events, and the solution of narrative passages. Main idea and supporting details. We also use this to help him find the central idea and the evidence in both the informational and narrative text, but we only got through the narrative text. Then it was the cause and effect between basically, especially when it was basically when the mom kept started having more kids, and how did it affect their relationship, and just the added characters and the different emotions that they contribute um to their relationship. The compare and contrast Venn diagram I felt like was very important when we had to compare and contrast the sisters, how different they were, how they wanted to, uh, like at the beginning, how the sister wanted to uh, be with their child, like be with her little sister, excuse me. And then over time, she didn't have the need to want to do it anymore. So I felt like all these graphic organizers was very important for him, especially for him to organize his thoughts for when I'm not present, to guide him or give him those guided questions. All right, so the data sources that I used throughout this whole thing was the Reading Interest Survey, the Garfield Reading Attitude Survey, the San Diego Quick Assessment, the Multidimensional Fluency, Elementary Spelling Inventory, and the QRI grade passages. We used Amazing Octopus, and the other one that I did for the final was the Oxygen. All right, so this is just an overview of the assessments that we use. For instance, the reading interest survey, he does not like to read anything in his spare time unless it's a comic or graphic novel. Um, he really doesn't like reading in his spare time. Thus, he does need to read more. In his San Diego, his independent was a fourth grade. His instructional though was fifth grade, and his frustration was sixth grade. So he's right on grade level when we're talking about reading words, and based upon that quick assessment. His elementary spelling inventory, well, his spelling stage was mid syllable and affixed. He spelled 16 out of the 25 correct. In his feature points, he had 52 out of the 62, and his power score was 16. Okay, so based upon his elementary spelling inventory, I did not feel the need that he needed to do a phonemic awareness. I did not feel like we needed to do that. We did not need to do the phonics either, depending based upon his scores on his elementary spelling inventory and his QRR. So, well, for his QRI fifth grade passage, he did the Amazing Octopus. His miscues was 2 and 8. The time he took was 129. He had 128 words per minute. He answered 5 out of the 8 questions correct. He was able to comprehend the questions. He went into the passage several times. When required to write out the summary, he had a hard time putting the information into his own words. And thus, this is where I came up with my research question. All right. So between our all of our teachings, between all of our teachings, we were able to do a few things. Okay, so for his initial assessment, his answering implicit and explicit questions. The first time when he did with the octopus story, he got 3 out of 4 and then 2 out of 4, which thus will put him in a frustrational level of comprehension when it comes to his QRI. In his written summarization, he really wasn't able to do so. In his final assessment, though, when for his implicit, he got a 4 out of 4, and then his explicit, he had a 3 out of 4. So now he has reached a level of instructional. And when we were talking about the summarization, he missed one of the 3 important details, which I feel like he did better because he was actually able to form that sentence. Now, moving forward, we want to make sure that Joseph have the supports that he needs. So he was able to score higher in the explicit and explicit questions in the QRI test, and his summarization has improved, especially when guided questions are provided. So my next action steps, okay? So we want to make sure we continue shared reading. We want to read graphic novels together with the parent modeling, summarization, and asking probing questions. We want to utilize the Sparkle strategy. That's something that we did do. We applied the Sparkle method, short, problem, action, resolution, key characters, location, and time, in each in your own words as a framework for summarizing. The graphic organizer practice use and continue using the story maps and other graphic organizers for short passages, focusing on critical information and discuss headphones off moments. We want to talk about deeper themes, connection, and stories using specific examples from sisters to analyze character growth and relationship. And we want to consider less complex text. If needed, using simpler text for focused summarization practice to build confidence before returning to more complex graphic novels. When I was working with Joseph, I realized that plot was a main thing. So those story maps and those graphic organizers that's helping him put all the important details into, in their correct areas is very important to him. It's very important for him. He also need like I wanted to say like a generic probing questions to help him summarize according to the genre. So maybe he needs like a little folder that says, okay, when we're reading informational text, this is the questions we're going to go. These are the guidelines when summarizing. When we're using um, a narrative story, these are the guidelines we're going to use when narrating, when reading the narration, okay? For summarizing. So if he have all those things in place, I am very confident that his summarization will become stronger, especially when he starts digging into those moments and making into those moments in the story and making those connections. Especially when we're talking about complex things like characters and feelings and emotions and things that happen, like the change of what happened then versus what's going on now. Joseph, if I forgot to mention earlier, he is diagnosed with autism, so he seems to only know how to do things one way. So I think this would be a great way to build his capacity when it comes to being able to describe things in his separate way. I saw a big change when it came to his summarizing because before he wanted to go through each story and each page and just tell me what's going on, but he's basically just rereading it. So when we start like really looking at those big details versus those tiny details and figuring out what's the difference between the two, I feel like it really helped him when realize, okay, yes, this did happen, but does this contribute to the main idea? Is this a detail that if we didn't say it, will it change the ending or the gist of the story? So all to say, Joey made remarkable progress with the time that was allotted to us. He did make progress, and he seems to when he learns something, he learns it. But it does need repetition for him. So this is not like a one-stop shop where he is done, but he needs to continue to work on it so that he doesn't lose what he's learned over these last couple of weeks. And that is it. Thank